Hey guys, welcome to this week of Inverted Insights. I'm stoked to start to be able to bring you some more proper content now that I'm settled. Maybe you saw me post on Instagram yesterday a little bit of reel about the timeline of your training. And so for this week's installment of Inverted Insights, I wanted to do a deep dive into the training timeline with you guys, why progress sometimes takes a little bit longer than what we think, and how to understand where you are within your training cycle. So when we are training, there are two types of adaptations that are going in within the body. There is the neural adaptation and there's the structural adaptation. And also when we're learning, there's three phases to our development. We have the learning, we have the adaptation, and we have the consolidation. Now the neural, this happens relatively quickly within the first 2 to 4 weeks. Your nervous system gets a little bit more efficient at recruiting muscular strength, the right motor units, and just creating a little bit more coordination with what's going on. This way is why maybe when you started your training, you saw rapid progress very quickly because you went from maybe perhaps unstructured into structured. As soon as we bring that structure and repetition in, the nervous system and neural circuits get a chance to really adapt quickly to the things that we're providing it. Where if we're just doing things here and there, we never gives that chance for the neural circuits to really kind of work with things. The second being those structural adaptations. Now, these definitely take a little bit longer, and this is where we're creating adaptations to the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments. And this is where our practice can feel like a little bit slower grind because it takes like 4, 8, 12 weeks for us to really see the changes in these things. And I would argue actually sometimes even longer, because my own practice, definitely in my one-arm journey, it would sometimes be a good 2 to 3 months of really, really working with a drill before I started to really like feel good, strong, and stable in it. Now, this is maybe sometimes why you feel dips in your practice, why you'll have rapid progress for the first month and then it'll kind of dip, but you'll pick back up again, and then we're going to switch out some exercises or push it, and then you'll kind of have an initial phase and then it's kind of going to plateau. And this is where it's the learning, the adaptation, and the consolidation. So just circling back to those structural changes, this is what we really have to give time for, and why we generally program in like 8-week phases, or why I program you in 8-week phases, because we need to give time for those things to take place. And sometimes that reacts quicker in some of you, other times it's going to take a little bit longer, but it is definitely something that you absolutely need to be patient with. So feeding off all of this and back into what we spoke about in the community tool of like how skills are learned, I want you to think about these 3 phases. So the learning, which we can call the cognitive phase, the adaptation, and then the consolidation, which is kind of the autonomous phase. So the adaptation, the learning, the cognitive phase really is like weeks 1 to, I would argue, pushing like 3, 4 sometimes, where you're really consciously thinking about every single movement that is going on. And, you know, I think we're always consciously thinking about those things, but especially if we're starting from like baseline, like if you've just joined this community, it's like these are the things that you really need to think about of like, okay, where are my hands? How is my breath? Where is my gaze point? How are my hips being positioned? Stacking the shoulders, squeezing the legs, and this proprioceptive side, this understanding of how we move through space, how to position, take the body, can react quite quickly. But also as we move through, this definitely becomes more fine-tuned and kind of moving through those things. And the mental load of this is enormous, and the execution is going to be inconsistent. This is what I was talking about, where a lot of what we're engaging here is the upper motor neurons to bring things into life. And the consolidation phase is really where we're going into our central pattern generators, where things are kind of like stacking in their hard drive place and the program is written. Now the phase 2, the adaptation phase, this is where a little bit of that magic happens. And probably a lot of you noticed when you first started, the first month was really getting used to things, but the second month is where things kind of took off and the real work kind of started to happen. And this is where you're going to begin self-correcting a little bit more, really understanding the spaces that you're in, how to work with your handstands, and the patterns kind of consolidate so that you can actually get a little bit more comfortable upside down. But this can also be a little bit of an invisible progress phase where things just feel a subtle, slow grind And this is often where people jump ship. If they're doing things on their own, they'll do it for like 8 weeks and then kind of put it down, and then a month or 2 months goes by and then they'll come back to it and so on. So you're constantly recycling through phase 1, 2, back, phase 1, 2, back, phase 1, 2, back. We never allow ourselves to move into that place of consolidation where we can move the actions into a little bit of an autonomous state. So when we start to hit this point in that autonomous state, this is where skills start to feel natural. Now, the thing is with pincher and handstand, it's a very high level skill. It's like 1% of the world can do this. And it's like, if we're talking about the science of this, a lot of this will come from like basic movements, but when we go into high level skills as this, I want you to think of these timelines as guidelines rather than like law, gold set in stone. But when we go through these phases into the autonomous, this is where we don't have to think as much. Things feel natural. We can kind of feel our way into it, and we're not feeling like that pinball moving around going, okay, hips, shoulders, breath, gaze, hips, shoulders, breath, gaze, hips, shoulders, breath, gaze. And it's where we can just actually do the thing. Now, the thing is to go through all of this, repetition is absolutely key. And you've heard me hound on about this 1,000 times. Repetition, 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 fucking repetition is the driving force behind all of this, because it's not about just doing it. Like, also repetition is great, but if we're doing it without awareness, then it's pointless. So repetition with awareness to help us build that more refined motor pattern, which again, if you watch that community call, if you haven't yet, go do so, because this is where it's like, okay, focus, disciplined, practice, engaging those upper motor neurons so our lower motor neurons can fire those neurological wires to our muscles to then be able to write those programs in our CPGs so we can move from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. Something to note here is this isn't just over the whole cycle of your handstand. As you progress, we know those exercises are going to change, or the way that we interact them changes. So you're constantly moving through these like 3 to 4 month cycles every time. And that's what can also be frustrating, is because, as some of you may know, once you get to a point, cool, we're going to switch it up, and you feel like you're back at square one again, which is also a necessary thing. So I know it can be super frustrating sometimes in your training, but one thing that I would ask you to do, or, walk away and think about it, is like, okay, where do I feel that I'm at in my journey? How can I bring a little bit more awareness and intention to the actions that I'm doing rather than just moving through it? And, letting go of it in terms of, this really helped me with my one arm, of releasing that outcome. It's like, okay, how can I learn what's going on today, what's feeling? Because also it's not just going to be, okay, phase 1, 2, 3. It's going to be phase 1, 2, 3, okay, back down. And each day is going to be super different. So it's not, I know it's boring in terms of like reps and doing it again, but again, what I would challenge is like, how can you experience it differently? What is the subtle motions you can be? How are your fingers feeling with it today? What happens if you slow your breath down, or, just focus on engaging the glutes? And this is sometimes what I would do in the very beginning, is like, okay, in this handstand, let me really just focus on the shoulders and hand placement. Cool. Okay, on the next handstand, now that I know more of this, let me focus onto the hips. Great. Now let me focus into the legs. So kind of breaking it down into little points. So it's the same exercise, but you're experiencing it in different ways each time. Whole lot of shit there. I hope it helps. I would love to hear your thoughts, your questions in comments or discussion below. Let me know. Big love, family. Thank you so much for being here.